The easiest way to get into the meditative state is to begin by listening. If you simply close your eyes and allow yourself to hear all the sounds that are going on around you, just listen to the general hum and buzz of the world as if you were listening to music. Don't try to identify the sounds you're hearing. Don't put names on them. Simply allow them to play with your eardrums. Let your ears hear whatever they want to hear. Don't judge the sounds. As you pursue that experiment, you will very naturally find that you can't help naming sounds, identifying them, that you will go on thinking, that is to say, talking to yourself inside your head automatically. But it's important that you don't try to repress those thoughts by forcing them out of your mind, because that will have precisely the same effect as if you were trying to smooth rough water with a flat iron. You're just going to disturb it all the more.
Hearing for me is incredibly focused in attention, with the capacity to compassionately understand and interpret the information that's being given to you. Winter is an incredibly intimate time for me, relationship-wise, creativity-wise, spiritual connection-wise. It's a very intimate time.
Welcome to the Reasons and Season podcast. We're meeting here in the season of winter, talking about all things water element, inner listening, contraction, vitality, intimacy, and stability. Be sure to check out the full digital interactive experience at reasonsmag.com. In today's episode, we will be exploring the art of inner listening with Asia Black of The Reminders. The wintertime rules the sense of hearing and opens us to a space of stillness where we can re-engage with our origin as part of our creative process in life. Water element time challenges us to ask ourselves the question of, are we really listening, and how is our sense of hearing?
For me, I think hearing is focused attention with the capacity to interpret the information that's been given. So, like when I'm trying to listen, I'll give an example for me creatively. When I'm thinking of ideas, I treat each of my ideas as if it was like a spirit that's like visiting me. And I have to be fully attentive on that thing without distraction, with intense focus, and increase my capacity to understand, right? And so hearing for me is incredibly focused in attention with the capacity to compassionately understand and interpret the information that's being given to you.
I like that you mentioned without distraction. So when we look at this winter time, as everything comes into a space of full contraction, a full stillness, there's this solitude, this quietness, that really, I mean, even for me where I'm living, nothing is really scurrying too much about the
Right.
forest. Everything is very still.
Still.
And, I know in past interviews, we've talked about the idea of distraction in our culture not celebrating that winter of the creative process.
Right.
And I think, as we deepen into the dead of winter, it is important for people to recognize what distractions are pulling them away from this inner listening.
Right. Definitely. For me, and I always say for me, because I speak to myself with things, I kind of like the docile nature of the winter. I like how it makes people very soft. Like for the weather to be so hard, I feel like people become very soft in the winter time. And intimacy to me thrives in the winter as well as the summer. So many people think of summer as like the ultimate intimate time, or spring as the ultimate intimate time, but I think winter is what breeds the spring and the summer. So for me, winter is an incredibly intimate time for me, relationship wise, creativity wise, spiritual connection wise. It's a very intimate time for me. And I imagine it follows the life cycles of some animals where they're getting ready to get into their reproductive cycles, and they're getting enough rest so that they are ready for the spring. And so
Yeah, and
I think it's similar for me.
when we look at in the concordance of the elements from a classical Chinese medicine perspective, the water element rules fertility. And anytime clinically that we're working with somebody that might be dealing with fertility issues, it's really looking at fortifying the inner waters, the inner reserves. Many times those deficits or issues are reflected in burnout and people burning the candle at both ends and not taking that time for reprieve. And ideally, we have this capacity to get in touch with this inner truth. So we are very clear about what we are going to give life to, what we have deep within us that is ready to come out into another form in the spring and in the summer and in our creations that we manifest. So when you think about that context, what do you think the relationship between deep listening and recognizing inner value or truth is?
I'm getting ready to go on a creative meditation, which means for the amount of time that I assign to myself, I am going to just be specifically focused on doing that kind of listening. Listening to spirit, listening to ideas, listening to those things. And I just believe that, you know, for any spiritual development for me, it's required a tremendous amount of deep listening. And sometimes that stillness is facilitated by some type of pain or change or mark in conflict between the past and the future. And I just like how you keep using the term deep listening, because there's so often when people think they're listening. But for me, deep listening means listening from the inside and not listening from the outside in, but listening just from the inside, not even with the intention of bringing it to the outside, but in stillness and in confidence and in, like I said, as a creative person, I cannot be distracted when I go into when I go into a creative meditation. I'm too easily distracted. And that's the thing about me. It's too easy to get me to ignore that need for deep listening and listen to surface listening and superficial listening and emotional listening and something I call superhero listening, which means I'm listening to somebody with the intention to save them from something. And going into this time of year and just thinking about your question, I'm not sure if I'm answering it in a way that makes sense, but deep listening for me is completely involved with the self for me at first. And it gives me the capacity to do deep listening and develop my empathy and my intuition when it comes to other people.
Well, and so much of what we hear is what we want to hear, or we develop selective hearing based on our traumas or our distractions. And instead, we're listening for the noise and we're listening to respond and we're listening to things based upon our filter. And, really, as we peel back distraction and we get honest and integral to
Mm,
hearing with like truthfully hearing,
mm,
even if it's what we don't want to hear, or
right.
we don't have a reference point for it, or we want to make it something else, or a lot of times I think people tend to stop listening when they hear something they don't like,
Mm,
right? And so I think I really enjoy what you said about listening from the inside and listening from a place of our own truth and our own inner value. It's kind of the internal is going to modulate what is possible in the external too. And so if we want to be able to provide that space for others, we have to do it for ourselves too.
yeah, and it's just for me, what it basically does for me to go into these creative meditations is it gives me the space to do that listening and accept whatever, comes out of that, whatever my hands or my heart or my head is guided to do. Also, I have to do that every year or I am not capable of listening to other people because my mind is like, hey, 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 hey. You know what I mean? Like my mind is constantly trying to distract me and trying to get my attention because there are things that it's basically like leaving your mind pregnant past its due date. You know what I mean? And your mind is like, I have all of these things I'm ready to give birth to, and I can't carry these babies around anymore. I'm way past due. And so basically, metaphorically, I put my gloves on and put my mask on and walk into the delivery room and deliver all these concepts and ideas that are past due. And spend some time focusing on the beauty of birth of those ideas and the beauty of each one individually and listening to its stories and looking at its hands and its feet just to maintain the metaphor of delivering a baby. I feel like it's like being a doctor. My pager's going off right now. It's the winter time and it's time for me to go deliver these ideas, and I have to be incredibly focused when I do that. So
And I think culturally and socially, many of us are afraid to hear the inner voice because we give up our power to do things that aren't, we work jobs that we're not really designed to work, or we give up our truth to fulfill identities that we get so co-opted into. And so there's this
mm,
fear of being able to really go into what is honest and what is integral. And water element time, the winter season, brings us close to the emotion of fear. And we know that when we distill that fear, it becomes courage, and it's expressed as a deeper wisdom, a truth that allows us to grab that what is inside of us and conjure it up and put it into existence through creativity. And with these cycles of death and rebirth, there's this consistent development of that source power into creativity. So when you think about fear and its relationship to creativity and this fertility and the capacity to let those ideas and give birth to those things inside of you for them to survive even, how does it land for you when you think about maybe peers or just social experiences where fear has been distorted and manipulated to create oppression and really rob us of our creative potential?
I mean, we kind of see that everywhere. And the music industry is a perfect example of everybody feels like they can qualify your creativity based on people's response to it. But I'm learning it's more, you have to focus more on the intention than the interpretation. And what happens when people qualify art is it's very discounting and it's very invalidating. I feel like discounting somebody's art is the equivalent to if I tell you, Elza, I'm really feeling sad today. And you said, you shouldn't feel sad. I mean, look at this other person. They're happy. Like, what are you sad about? It's very invalidating to discount somebody's art in that way because it's an expression of truth for them, or the need for truth for them. And discounting it, I think, it creates a tremendous amount of fear. Me, myself, I am a person that when I'm creating, I have a tremendous amount of confidence. Once somebody else is evaluating my creativity, I lose my confidence. And it puts me into this state where I have to, again, this creative meditation, I have to create a lot of things at one time that I'm going to be focused on promoting or sharing in the following months because my confidence is not where it should be as a result of different traumas in my life. And I have a fear of, it's almost like I have a fear of self-actualizing to a degree. I let all of my ideas, my mind stay pregnant with my ideas way past due because it's like I'm like, well, what if it doesn't make it? Or what if it is afflicted in some way? Or what if I'm not the right person to give birth to this idea? What if I'm not a good mother? What if I'm not a good, and my ideas are very, very much like somebody, the universe is telling me a truth and I have to try to translate it in as many ways as I can to get it as close to the language that's being spoken, and I don't always get it right. And the hard thing, what creates fear, is that the times when I do get it right, when the translation is spot on, that my art can still be qualified by other people, or that I can be under the foot of oppression of just contemporary society where they're invalidating people's art based on their gender, invalidating people's art based on the color of their skin, or the fact that they have children, which you and I both know puts creatives in a position because of patriarchal structures that exist in giving access to creative spaces. I have so many friends that are afraid to have children, because they're afraid of how it will obstruct their creativity, and they have a longing and a need to have children, Elza. But fear of being discredited and invalidated and kept out and having their access taken away to something that's so much a part of them scares them to death.
Yeah, I think I certainly relate to that as a mother, as an entrepreneur. My daughters are 13 and 9, and it wasn't until the last like 2 or 3 years that I realized I had abandoned my creative self. I had stopped listening to the visions and the dreams and the ideas that would come that would, pique my interest and start to awaken my passion. I got so disconnected from that because I, did have to rear these children. And now I'm learning that the experience of having children and of going through that process of birthing something into existence, loving it, caring for it, feeding it, nourishing it, providing it the proper environment, it helped me get really intimate with the idea that my creativity doesn't have to be this like instantaneous commodity, that it is something that will take time to nurture, and it'll take time to move it through these cycles, and that there are reasons in season.
Yeah, exactly. That name is right on time for everything that we discuss every time. And I think what you've been able to accomplish creatively as a mother, and just as a person who has always exposed themselves to new challenges and always exposed themselves to new adventures, admire tremendously the space that you've created for yourself to flourish and grow and thrive. And, I just really think that you've created kind of a perpetual spring around yourself right now, where things are blooming and blossoming and growing in abundance. And I just pray that you're increased in every way for that, and that abundance is always what falls at your feet, and mercy always comes into your hands.
Thank you, my dear. And I can't say it better, and I'll just say it is all reflected to you as well.
Ah.
And it's just, we love listening to some Asia Black tracks, hearing my daughter, match your voice in the back of the truck when we're driving. Your song, coming home. We left the city and came home to the mountains. It's like brings me to tears every day, and it's like we're holding each other within
Yeah.
that. So it's really an honor to go here with you.
I came from the land of the mountains, where rivers run and flowers smile. Mother Moon kiss me every night. Now I'm living in a land of luxury, where stars leave the sky to walk the streets. And I wonder why my heart is steep in shadow. Oh, I know a lonely, deep and cold. It makes me want to go. Oh, I know a lonely, deep and cold. It makes me want to go. I just wanna go, so I beat my drum till morning comes. Then again until I set the sun. I sing my sacred song as a message on the wind, to tell my kin I'm coming home. I'm coming home. Cracks in my heart, a crown on my head. What's the point? I'm as good as dead if I got no one close enough to see. And I can't see past the end of my reach. The ones I love that I can't touch, too far away to hear them pray for me. Oh, I know a lonely, deep and cold. It makes me want to go. Oh, I know a lonely, deep and cold, that makes me wanna go.
I've been gone so long, finally on my way. Countdown, warm welcome, celebration day. I carry wisdom in my scars and bitter marks of what I've been through. A blackbird, rebirth, flying back to you. Salt to the earth, I was caught up in the whirlwind. Wrestling for heaven, trying not to let the world win. Miraculous escape, great shape, divine mercy. Purify my soul, stay faithful on the journey.
So I beat my drum till morning comes. Then again until I set the sun. I sing my secret song as a message on the wind, to tell my kin I'm coming home. I'm coming home.
Listeners, you've been tuned into the Reasons and Season podcast. Be sure to check out the full digital interactive experience at reasonsmag.com. We're going to get back into this dialogue on the art of inner listening and the aspect of water element as it relates to our sense of hearing. Back to the vulnerability and just to anchor into the relatability. We see the external of your creations. We can listen to your music and can consume it and love it and be with it and intimately like bring it into ourselves. And we don't always assume like, oh, this was hard for Asia to get in there and like actually pull it out and bring it to fruition, because the masterful expression of it is, we get to see the product. So when you think about your experience in that vulnerability, like gaining that courage in yourself, how have you cultivated bravery to listen to your truth?
You know what's crazy is, for me, when I'm making something, when it's in its infancy, when I have that little baby idea in my arms and I'm just cradling it and rocking it, it never feels like work. It feels like a mercy, like becoming a mother. You know what I mean? It's like it just feels like a mercy. And what I've done to kind of push back against that need to be polished and perfect and all of the things that in this industry we're up against is, I'll do things like this morning I posted a song. I had just woken up and thrown on a shirt and my hair was just saying, hello world, today I'm just going to do as I please. And I was at the piano and it was a very, very early sketch of a song. I had thought of it like this. It came to me very quickly. So I just sat down at the piano and I said, I'm about to figure out some chords. And so I sat down at the piano and I said, I wonder if anybody would be interested to see what these songs look like in their infancy. And so the song I have been reflecting on, I have a friend that battles depression. And I've been reflecting on what that must feel like. And I communicate things to myself through imagery. It's almost like when the world gives me a truth or a falsehood, my brain creates another world in which I can step into to understand it. Right. So I have a friend and she battles deep depression. I said, that must feel like sitting on the moon with your arms wrapped around your legs and your head tucked down, feeling utterly and desperately alone. And you can hear the shout of life from Earth. And it just reminds you that you're out here on the moon all by yourself. And a little bit of the song, it goes, I have a friend who lives on the moon where it's always winter, even in June. I visit often, but I leave too soon. My lovely friend on the moon. She traveled quite slowly, one step each day, while all that's around her slowly turned gray. We used to be close, now she's so far away. My lovely friend on the moon. I have a friend who lives on the moon, where it's always winter, even in June. I visit often, but I leave too soon. My lovely friend on the moon. She traveled quite slowly, one step each day, while things all around her slowly turned gray. We used to be close, now she's so far away. My lovely friend on the moon. Right? And so I was communicating what it must feel like to feel so far away from everyone. You know what I mean? And know that there's a place that you originated that's vibrant and beautiful, but to feel so far away. And sometimes my favorite I can't think of the word, incarnations of the song is the very first one. And on Coming Home, that was the first recording of the song. You know, it's like I produced the song in about 20 minutes and I put it out just like that because people gravitate towards, I feel like I lose my ability. It's like every single time I record and re-record and re-record, another screen goes up. and I'm not thinking about the idea. I'm not thinking about the infant. I'm thinking about how to give it a great life, how to make sure it gets a good job, and how to make sure it's always taken care of, and it's not that moment of holding my idea in its infancy and just being filled with a sense of gratitude and mercy.
I love that again, that vulnerability to get there. I remember the first time I heard that song coming home, you guys played a free concert at the Levitt Pavilion.
Yeah.
And I was in tears from the moment I heard the intro, and it just hit me. It hit me, and music does that to me. It's a resonant thing for me, and that's how I'm very particular about the music that I listen to, because if it doesn't hit me, if it doesn't touch my soul, then, am I giving life to myself by consuming something that is not that connected to somebody's inner truth? And so again, I've heard hundreds and hundreds of times, if you could count how many times the girls and I play that song, you would know how much fans we are.
It's so funny because that song is the one where people are like, it doesn't match the other song on the record. And I'm like, this song's going on the record.
We love this song. And, really bottom line is it hits somewhere so deep in our hearts that, the frequency of it's changing us. It's changing us to hear more clearly who we are. And that's what that deep inner listening does. And without having to filter it, without having to, edit it and make it perfect and make it something that it's not, that's when that power can really bring us to the core of each other, which is so beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm so grateful to know that it's being received in that way. And it encourages me and makes me not feel like I'll be able to identify the trigger points when I'm feeling less confident in my creativity and still have the willingness to share things in their most natural state. Because sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes that's the best way for them to be shared.
It's beautiful. Thank you so much, Asia, for your time.
Oh, thank you for always having me. Every time we do one of these, I have to go journal for an hour.
Yes.
I'm like, let me process the science that Elza's on, because she been on serious science.
Here we are. Listeners, you're hearing from Asia Black of The Reminders. To learn more about The Reminders music, check out thereminders.com. You've been listening to the Reasons and Season podcast, which is exploring the ancient art of seasonal living through creativity, culture, movement, food as medicine, and philosophy designed to awaken the pattern language within. Check out the full digital interactive experience at reasonsmag.com. Original score and production by Ichiban, exploring the essence of seasonal vibration through the art of sound. We're meeting here in the season of winter, solidifying into the core of our inner truth with the track Solidify.